My name is Jeremy Castle. I work at BlackRock, which is an asset management firm based in New York, and I work on the systems and analytics team focusing heavily on HR analytics. Today we're going to discuss HR analytics here and now. Throughout the presentation, we'll focus on what is HR analytics and work to define that, understanding how to get started from building an HR analytics shop, leveraging data insights, and then finally lessons learned and advice. So what is HR analytics? I think it's a quite complex concept. Not everyone really knows what it is. It's kind of the hot phrase. You'll hear big data, you'll hear people analytics, you'll hear all these things that is what's going around in the news. But I think the most important thing as we take away from this webinar is that HR analytics is really defined by what your organization is looking to do with the people data that you have. Okay? So, HR analytics allows us to define our role in the organization. We touch most research that includes people in the organization. Some examples are talent management analytics, for example, looking at whether or not there's a pattern to who's being promoted. Talent acquisition analytics, this goes everything from understanding whether or not we're hiring diverse individuals to determining whether or not there's a certain major from a university that succeeds in the organization versus others. Workforce analytics, which is overall modeling of what the shape of the org and the spans of control may be. And then learning and development measurements, identifying whether or not classes that you are offering are effective and how they help drive your goals from a talent perspective into the organization. For example, manager training. And then what's most important is that this data can come in both qualitative and quantitative. And I'll speak a little bit later in the presentation, but really identifying that the qualitative can be sometimes more impactful than the quantitative. And I think a little mission statement that I know myself and the rest of the team have really gone by is that our mission is to drive evidence-based decision-making, promoting meaningful discussion of workforce capability and the employee experience by delivering key business insights and analytics. So how to get started? So the key skills that many of us believe you need to be successful within the department of a people analytics organization is a consulting feel, and I don't want to say exactly a background, but the ability to consult with others, and then the desire to do research. Now, when looking at the team, the company culture matters the most. There are many organizations that may prefer to have IO psychologist backgrounds, and there are other organizations, and it's becoming more common, that individuals have programming and computer skills that will help them really put a different spin on the data that exists. This is very specific to each organization. I know for my own experience, I used to work for an organization that used to have IO psychologists that would drive the discussion, and that was very based upon the client's desire to not necessarily understand the patterns within the data, but understand their individuals through the data, meaning what are some of the competencies that we can pick up from the data and go from there, versus programming and computer skills where in my current environment it's very much driven by what algorithms can we create and write that will help us determine what type of individuals will be successful or be promoted in coming years. Again, this becomes very specific to the organization you work for, and as you build that out, you'll start to get the feel for what works and what doesn't work. I think the biggest challenge in this area is finding individuals that can both be the athletes and the executors of a program or the research, and then individuals that can also deliver the information. And of course, this is always the holy grail that many people speak about, but it's really not just going for the heavy researchers, but really identifying individuals that can speak to the data and the information that they're providing. And then most finally for this slide is you really want to educate your partners on what your goals are from an HR analytics perspective. There are many articles out there, there are many books out there that highlight what some companies are doing from a very advanced perspective. And we'll talk a little bit about, in the coming slides, the learning curve for an HR analytics shop. But what's most importantly is that you want to drive what fits your organization. Just because another organization is really doing these neat type of analysis, it may not be right for your organization at that time until you develop and begin to build. So framing our business opportunities. Here at BlackRock, we are a very data-driven, technology-based investment company that is very focused on people. People data was difficult to access and harder to analyze. So some of our challenges were that we had data collection issues, data availability questions, and data aggregation struggles. So some of the questions that we asked ourselves was, do we really have big data? In some of our areas, we have terabytes of data being created every single second. So for example, we buy and sell stocks, or individuals in the market will purchase stocks from BlackRock. It's creating transactions every millisecond, creating terabytes of data. Now think about HR. How many transactions are actually occurring? You may hire 50 people in a day, so that means, okay, you probably have 50 transactions for a hire. You may term 25 individuals for the day, so now you have 75 transactions for the day. Maybe 30 people transferred to another organization on that day. Okay, now we're up to 105. And there are certainly other transactions that may occur, whether it be with benefits or a salary change or an ER issue. But just to kind of give you that scope is we're certainly not working in thousands of transactions on a daily basis unless there's a major development occurring. It's more occasionally within the hundreds. How factual is our data? So for example, we know on April 1st, 2015, BlackRock stock closed at $362.57. That's a fact. But from a people perspective, in 2014, Sam Brown was given an average rating of 4.3 by his colleagues on his management skills. Is this a fact or an observation? And how easy are those observations looked upon and questioned? So for example, the stock, you can't really question that. We know that that is what the stock ended. Many may come and say, well, that 4.3, it's really a 3.5, or no, Sam was really a 5. So there's some variability to the perception of some of the HR data. And then the employee reaction. So to generate actionable analysis, we need access to more than the typical HR data. And the ultimate question is, how will the employees react? Our perception is you want to be as transparent as possible. These are individuals' information that we want to respect and keep confidential to the utmost extent. So while open and collaborative and willing to innovate, BlackRock isn't known for the unproven investment. And the biggest concern wasn't data technology or hiring. So how do we approach addressing some of these issues? So here are People Analytics, the step ladder. And this will kind of help identify some of the ways that we met our challenges that I just spoke about. So for any People Analytics shop, you're going to start at the bottom. You're going to start at standards of reporting as of how many employees did we hire. That may be simple, but sometimes you really need to step back and think about, what is your organization made of? Do you have employee fixed terms? Do you have contract workers? Do you have interns? Are all of these employees considered hires from an employee perspective, or is there an auxiliary count that you would add of true employees, and then another column saying intern hires or contingent workers or employee fixed terms? So we really need to think through what is about the organization. How many positions do we have in London is an example of an ad hoc report. These are very often things that a leader in another department will email and say, can I get how many positions we have open in London, or how many promotions did we fill last year in Germany? Then you'll continue to grow into query drill downs And these are specific on the actual data that you may have collected. So what group scored lowest on the survey, and for example, an employee opinion survey, where you may have to go query the data in one of your databases to pull that out. And then alerts. This is the kind of tracking what may be occurring. So when you launch a talent initiative, whether it be mid-year ratings, year-end ratings, or objectives, you want to create the dashboard capabilities or the alerts so that leaders can ensure that certain individuals are following through with what they need to do from a talent perspective. Now, this is just the base case to get started. The infrastructure that you need, which could be a whole other webinar in of itself, is certainly somewhere to be pulling out the data from your human capital management system or your hiring system or your employee relation system and storing it in one specific place. The best way always to go is to work with your IT and have a database to be working off of. There are many organizations, due to confidentiality, that will have kind of databases based within just the HR team. I think the best practices are always to identify the way to work with IT and create the firewalls so that you are based off of a real, true, large database where a lot of these activities can become seamless and easy, and then connect into things like business intelligence or business objects. Now, looking at the green boxes, something to remember is that these will never go away. So as you climb the ladder, you still need to build the infrastructure to maintain this work. You will certainly change from a percentage perspective of how much you do, but for example, here at BlackRock, we have individuals that are dedicated to the green areas while we grow and expand into the blue boxes that I'll go over now. So now we're looking at statistical analysis. These are starting to look at what major is going to be the best for an investments job. Is it truly an economics major is going to perform the best, get promoted, and have the longest tenure? It may be another major from a STEM that might surprise us. And we take that information and deliver that to the clients, which in this case are our internal managers, hiring managers, and help them identify what will be the most successful candidate. You then work into forecasting. What will be the impact of a reduction in headcount? What will be the impact of X promotions to managing director to the firm's shape? These are a lot of model-based forecasts and the ability to allow the user, aka the client, to manipulate it themselves and help them get to the answer that they're looking for. Predictive analytics, who might leave the firm, who should be getting promoted, what will be the extent of diversity over the next couple years. And then optimization. What are the mix of skills are required to make a given team successful? Do more diverse teams, are they more successful than others? So it's allowing you to answer more and more complex questions that not necessarily the business are thinking of, but you're bringing to the business. And I think that's where the competitive edge really changes from the green boxes into the blue boxes, is you are delivering the insights before they're even getting asked. Now, the challenge is the top blue boxes take time. And the most important thing for any individual who is, as they're developing and growing from the green into the blue, is the best idea is to be able to build a team where you have a few individuals that are not in the constant day-to-day fire drills. They have the time to kind of iterate through different approaches, iterate through different scenarios, and go back to the drawing board as they need. Because we really want to be strong and buttoned to be able to explain away any questions that may come up when you're providing this analysis. Next, we'll talk about leveraging new data in new ways. So there has been a significant focus on leveraging internal delivery tools for basic reporting, headcount recruiting, new hires, talent processes, training completion rates, and compliance reporting. What we do here at BlackRock and many other organizations that I know of is build custom reporting tools and custom dashboards that will allow us to easily give the user the capabilities to create reports themselves. And I think there's a little bit of a mix throughout the HR analytics community of leveraging some out-of-the-box products versus building in-house. And I think that goes to my earlier point of what is the culture of the organization. We at our organization are very big on developing homegrown solutions and then delivering them throughout. So we have the appetite of building something from scratch and playing around with it and happy to tweak it as we go along. But there are many organizations that would rather out of the box, this is what was developed by the experts at that organization and this is what we'll use. There are other questions of development of a public or a private warehouse, data warehouse. So how accessible do you make the data? There are desires to create faster, better services for the business. Let the business get the data on a one-click accessibility service. Don't have them email another team and have to wait 3 or 4 days. Allow them to get the information that they're asking quicker and faster. Ultimately, we want to collect as much data as possible. This can be challenging on occasion from a legal perspective, but the most important thing is collect whatever you possibly can think of and whatever possibly someone else can think of. It is important that you may not touch it at this very moment, but you'll want it in the future. And then create more times to focus on analytics. And as you begin to do that, and as you have the opportunities to do that, you can start kind of scratching the surface into other areas, in particular into the data science world. So for example, you have this network analysis on the left. And a network analysis, traditionally, a social network analysis, is identifying who are the influencers and who are the receivers. Very often, you may think of network analysis of you take Twitter information, who are the individuals that are tweeting the most and who are the followers that they may have. It's the network of the interactions from a social perspective. But take that theory and apply it to maybe 360 or something like a get feedback exercise. Who are individuals that are being asked the most to provide the feedback, and who are individuals that are receiving the feedback the most? Let's go one step deeper. What departments are interacting with who? Very quickly you can identify, are the recruiters getting feedback from the business partners that they're working with? Are the business partners getting feedback or giving feedback into the businesses that they support and work with? So you can really start to understand the interactions and the webbing throughout your organization. On the right-hand side, the employee sentiment and performance. This is just an example of an alternate way of looking at things that many of us are familiar with from an employee engagement and enablement perspective. Overlaying things like performance ratings, and those that have the strongest performance rating have the highest enablement and engagement. Another example is telling the story with a profile. Think about websites where you put up all your information about your work history. Now think about having that information in-house, where you don't need to log into another website to look up an individual and understand what a past organization they've worked for, the skills. If you've collected this data and store it, you can start reporting it on an aggregate basis and really providing this management dashboard so that they can understand their organization or their team. Think of the power of, if a manager, I'm a new manager, I just came into the organization, here is a dashboard easily that I can understand the individuals on my team, their skills, and where I could ramp up if I need in any one area. Certainly, there are many different ways of laying out the information, and this is just one of the infographic ways that we're sharing here. There are other opportunities also, as I was just speaking, to work with the outside vendors if in the event that you're unable to build the information in-house. Because things like LinkedIn do have extremely rich and important data that you can repackage and deliver to your leaders. And these organizations are very willing to work with you. They're very interested in kind of stepping into this next area and help identify, for example, where are people departing from your organization and where are they coming from, so you can really get a good feel for your pipeline. So some lessons learned and a little advice. The most important element of building a successful people analytics function is your culture and your organizational needs and desires. I can't stress enough that there's no out of the box, this is how you build a people analytics team. I'm going to hire one IO, I'm going to hire one research student. It's really look at your organization, understand the culture of your organization, and then begin to execute there. You will be amazed how many individuals who have analytic skills that were not traditionally trained in the human resources areas are interested in this information and interested in doing work with people information. Think about data broadly and focus on what you can do, not what you can't do. Don't let yourselves be held up with questions of, oh, we can't look at this information just now because we don't have a complete data set. Try to drive the conversation for, yes, we may not be able to look at this today, but here's what we can do, and here's how it can help you answer the question. Don't try to solve every problem up front. Plan quickly, do, analyze, and repeat. Break every problem down and try to answer the puzzle piece by piece. I think one thing that I enjoy so much about this space is there's a puzzle to be solved every day from a people perspective, data perspective. And when you break that down piece by piece and you start to put them together, you'll see the bigger picture. Again, this may take a little bit of time, but that's the right way to go about it. The other thing that's important to understand is sometimes you need to help the client get through what they're asking. What I always ask my VPs that I work with to do if they receive a request from their business is ask why. Not to push back, but to truly understand what they're looking for, because very often what they're looking for is not what they've asked for. And to get that dialogue working with the VPs or whomever in HR in your organization may be working directly with the business. And the other point there is that you really want to make sure the individuals that you work with in the business understand your goals too. They're your ambassadors to the rest of the business. Very often, HR analytics individuals may not be in the meetings that they're having about data. So you really want to work very closely with your VPs to ensure that they understand your goals. Something that we did here at BlackRock is that we insourced our employee opinion survey. While we have a survey vendor for the execution of the survey, we do all of the analysis in-house. Sure, it does provide a lower cost, but it also creates a plethora of information that we now use and really has created some eye-opening opportunities for us to apply the data throughout the year. Hiring is harder than you think. Search for resources inside your company. This goes to a lot of the culture and what is your company actively doing. We have a tremendous amount of developers in our organization, and giving them the opportunities to work in a hot new space like HR analytics, you would be very surprised how many individuals are willing to take that leap. People will want more than you give them. Again, as with everything, this is working on their expectations and working through problems effectively and slowly. Those are our lessons learned and a little advice on HR analytics. I want to thank you all for attending this webinar and invite anyone with further questions to please reach out to me. Thank you very much.